there's never a problem that's too much. If you pick up the phone when there is a problem and you just address it and say, listen, I don't have the answer on how I'm going to fix this, but I'm calling you to let you know I will.
Welcome back to Season 5, my podcast, Relentless Life on Your Terms. Have a special guest with me, as usual, good friend of mine I've known for over 10 years, previous work colleague, someone I know and very fond of, Mr. Tim Graham. How are you, mate?
I'm really good, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Always love talking to you about real estate. Now, your entrepreneurial journey goes quite some time. You started back in hospitality before you got into real estate and before I met you. Tell us a bit about that. How long ago?
Yeah, I suppose it probably goes back. My parents bought a pub. We moved from not too far down the road here in St Kilda Road. My parents lived when I was first born, and then they bought a pub up in Yea, which is about an hour and a half north of Melbourne. They bought that when I was 18 months old. Sort of grew up in the pub as a little toddler, and then they sold that pub about 6 months before I turned 18, maybe as a bit of a gesture to say, we want you to get out of the pub scene. But it didn't work, because as soon as I finished school, I decided I wanted to go back there, and I went back to the pub that my parents used to own, and I managed it for the current owners at the time. So I was there for probably 4 or 5 years managing that pub, and then an opportunity came up to partner with some other cafe owners in the town to buy a pub around the corner. It was an old derelict pub. It had never really worked, and that was what appealed to us. We went in there and spent a bit of money doing it up, and then opened it up. And then after a couple of years, we won Best Restaurant in Country Victoria, and a lot of other, we went on TV with awards and things like that for our food. So it was a really interesting hospitality journey. But after 12 years of not having weekends, I decided it was time for something else.
Yea Peppercorn, I believe.
The Yea Peppercorn Hotel, that's right. But this shows how long ago it was now. Back in the day, you would obviously look at for jobs in the Herald Sun. Everyone goes to seek. But I saw a job advertised in the Herald Sun for an in-home consultant, and I had no idea what that meant. But it said sales, it said bit of travel and things like that, and I thought, anything. Let's apply, and it turned out it was for a company named Reventon.
Yeah. I remember the story. Always country people, I feel, are very well polite and well mannered, and you came from hospitality, and I guess you are the exception to that, Tim.
Exactly.
I remember when
I knew it was going there.
I remember when I first met you specifically at 499, and you had a very warm smile. I'm walking towards the lift. You hold the lift open. I go, hey, where are you going? Press level. I think we were 10 or 15 back then.
15. Yep.
Level 15. And I go, 15. I go, where are you going? You go, Reventon. I go, oh, what are you doing? I go, going for a job interview. I said, good luck, mate. I hope you get it. And I remember I walked in, the national manager at the time, John Possess, and I said, hi, this guy. I knew just from that interaction. And the reason I said that is because I knew this is someone I'd like our clients to be in front of. He's warm. He's great. I didn't know any experience that you had, but just from that interaction, I knew you'd be a great in-home. You didn't even have any experience. And I was definitely right. You weren't an in-home for very long before you got promoted to the manager of the company, which you were running nationally, which we were very happy. You worked with me for 5 years. You learned so much about real estate.
Yeah.
And I remember we developed quite a bond. You learned so much. You studied finance as well, so you had a very good understanding. Clients would always talk very highly of you, which I kind of expected. Then you actually went and traveled the world. You became sales global director. What was the title?
Yeah, global sales director for a prop tech company. Yeah.
So you never traveled the world before that?
No, I was always stuck, to a business. You know what it's like. Even if you didn't own the business, even when I was managing, I treated it like it was my own. And
I can attest to that, because you did that with us as well.
Yeah, it's but yeah, I suppose obviously if I look back at. I think I mentioned this in my wedding speech about you. It's hard to join dots looking forward. And Steve Jobs said this: it's hard to join the dots looking forward, but if you look backwards at how you got to somewhere, you can actually join the dots that happened. And if I look at my career now, most of the dots that join come back to that conversation I had with you and the opportunities that you gave me, to start a whole new career. And I'll never forget one of the things that you said early in my time at Reventon, is you said, if you want to be good, whether it's in this business or any business, you need to be valuable, and valuable doesn't just mean a specialist in one thing. And I became a bit of a generalist, which meant that, if somebody needed to jump in and do a finance run, I could do it. If somebody wanted to needed somebody to do a property run, I could do it. And then, in addition to that, IT, marketing, throw your hat in, and in a small to medium-sized business, which is what you were back then, you become very valuable to a business because you can jump in and help out. And I think that's something that comes from a hospitality background as well, that, you don't get to choose in a small business who does what. Everybody
You just
has
have to roll
pitch
your
in.
sleeves and get it
that's
done.
it.
Yeah, I will say that, but I will definitely not take any of that credit. You were very hardworking. You were very willing, and not many people have that capability to just fit in. I knew that you would from as soon as I met you, and so did the clients, and you had a massive impact on the business because you, alongside a lot of other people that have served over 5 years, 10 years at this business, we're going on to 19 years now. We were established, as you know, in 2005, is the reason. So what am I saying? 2000? It was 2005. Yeah, of course. 21st of March.
Yeah.
Are the reason we are where we were. So I remember that. I remember the day you started. I remember the day that you said you're going to travel the world, which was funny enough. I was sitting in that seat and you were sitting in this seat. Right. I remember it was a Sunday actually.
Yeah.
And I remember because I felt something, and I remember the conversation. I said to you, word for word, I said, Tim, sit down. You sat down. I said, is your health okay? Is someone unwell, or are you leaving? Which one is it? You never said a word, and you got emotional. I got emotional, and you go to me, I'm sorry, I'm going. I said, listen, remember the first thing I said to you, one of the first things, I'm happy for you no matter what, and I want the best for you. I'm going to say the same thing to you now. Ironically, you left and traveled the world, and I want to touch on that. Mm-hmm. And you came back for 3 years, so what is known as a boomerang employee. So let's talk about my tenure at Reventon. You were fantastic. You created an amazing team and created a lot of impact. But going from an industry, hospitality, to transfer in something totally different, tell me how that was. And someone that wants to get into a new industry.
I think one of the things about hospitality is that the skill set is transferable to most industries. People, especially in sales, people buy from people they like, they buy from people they trust. And I think hospitality gave me a really good foundation of customer service and teaching and sharing, a piece of yourself. When you're in hospitality, you're almost an actor. You're putting on a smile even if you had a bad day. And I think what that taught me was that there's never a problem that's too much. If you pick up the phone when there is a problem and you just address it and say, listen, I don't have the answer on how I'm going to fix this, but I'm calling you to let you know I will. And that type of behavior,
like
comes
people
from hospitality. People skills and building trust, just to say, I'm here, I know I know there's a problem, but I'm going to fix it. Hospitality, that happens all the time. You get a meal where somebody's not happy because it's a bit cold or whatever it may be. So you've got to deal with that at the time. And I think, a lot of those skills that I picked up through hospitality did transfer into dealing with clients in a
problem solving. Remember you said to me, and you can tell the mark of someone's great hospitality. He had a lot of traits, and I think I've told you many times, like my brother Zen, who was in hospitality now. Yeah. He's been doing this for over 20 years now in our industry, and now works at Reventon. I'm very fortunate to say that. You said to me it was such an important thing for me to someone to have a great meal and walk out having a great experience. Yeah. That shows someone who cares.
It's funny, going a big transition, obviously moving from hospitality into an industry like finance and real estate, which I had no idea. I had an interest in it, but I had no idea.
And the passion, and you were hardworking.
Yeah, certainly. But the interesting part about that is that as soon as you start working in real estate and you're actually helping somebody buy an investment property, it can take them years before they really know whether or not you've bought the right property for them if they've had success. And that was really weird for me at first because in hospitality, and we were known for having very good food and, great service and all those types of things. So when somebody would come through the door and I've never met them before, within an hour and a half, I may have made their day and they go away raving about it. In this line of work, in finance and real estate, you can give good service and they can compliment you on that. But as far as the results, that comes a bit later. And that was a really interesting dynamic for me to get my head around at first.
It's a hard paradigm. And you're funny you say that. And I make a bad example or analogy that our job from a revenue point of view, we see a client and then we might get paid 12, 18 months later when the house is built and completed. Yeah. And I use that analogy that I only have dreams of doing my service, giving them a plate of food or some coffee and then getting paid 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes later. For us, it's such a long time between drinks. The exact opposite paradigm.
Yeah, it's exactly.
You're saying you're waiting to see if the service works.
Yeah. Instant gratification.
Instant gratification. But the same from our work perspective, we don't get paid for that. We've got to provide that service. but I understand the difference.
Yeah.
So you went from hospitality to something like real estate, but I will attest by saying, being hardworking and willing, it takes 10,000 hours to master any skill or craft or
Mhm.
become an expert in your field. You put in so many hours,
Mm.
and you still do. You're very hardworking to be able to understand how finance works, property works. You always loved real estate, and I think that played a big,
Yeah.
big benefit or big influence in your career.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to obsess if you want to be top of your game and an industry leader or even leading your a sales team. You need to live and breathe it. And I did have a passion for real estate, even though I'd only ever owned one piece of real estate by that stage, which in the words of Darryl Kerrigan, it was worth almost as much today as the day I bought it. That was pretty much my first experience with real estate. I think we had it for about 5 or 6 years and made $15,000. So after cost, we probably lost money. But anyway, coming into working in real estate, I was like a sponge because
You were.
I knew I didn't know anything, and that meant I wanted to go and sit and all of the great people that we worked with in the past. Would never be shying away from asking a question if I didn't know something. I needed to know it, and I think that was something that. Really helped me propel into leadership in the Reventon business. And then, in that time, we had some big growth in this business as well. And I think we started to get a name in the industry. And that's what propelled me to be able to get the opportunity to go in and be the global sales director at Investorist.
I think so, yeah, because that opportunity obviously came from a colleague or someone you knew. But I'm going to discuss that. Obviously, you went from hospitality to real estate to tech. Now, I will preface this by saying you're always tech savvy, you're
Yeah.
always good. But how did you go from real estate to, I guess it was sales and tech, to kind of a different industry altogether? But it was working with developers, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
I was working with developers and real estate agents. So, I mean,
Worldwide as
again,
well, which gave you a lot
well,
of
yeah,
exposure.
yeah, but I suppose, I mean, it was an amazing 3 years. I did real estate in 18 different countries,
I was
essentially.
about to please
Yeah.
share with us how many planes were you on over a period of time? Because you told me about
2018, 2018, and I did 98 flights in a year. So
So to put that into context, how many times were you overseas before that?
I'd visited Fiji
Once.
once
So
and
barely traveled.
barely traveled.
And
Yeah,
then,
I'd been to a lot of capital cities in Australia through work with you and things like that, but I'd never gone international other than one
and within a
holiday.
year, you were on 98 flights.
Within 1 year, 98 flights,
That's insane.
and
So
then
just to put that into
yeah,
context.
and then it sort of, so I packed my bags for thinking I was going to Singapore and then to Miami in the US, which was where our head office was. And I was planning on being there for 4 weeks, right? So, I still had everything in storage. Sorry, not in storage, still at an apartment because I didn't
I
think
remember that, yeah.
yeah. So then we had to, somehow organize to have my old housemates had to pack everything of mine into storage. And it took me 3 years to come home.
That's insane. But you gained a wealth of knowledge. You
Yeah.
saw how developers operate. What were some of the commonalities and the big differences you saw with different builders and different developers? Because you walked into some amazing offices, some big hitters, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like there was the thing about our product was that it had real cut through, and what I mean by that is that we could, call through to the oldest real estate agency business in New York, tell them a little elevator pitch about what we do. Within a couple of minutes, you're talking through to a BDM who escalates it up to a national manager, and then all of a sudden, after one meeting, we're meeting with the CEO who's got 50 years experience and selling projects in New York. That's how much cut through we had. And there was plenty of pinch me moments there for a while. My best mate, Josh Cunningham, who was also in Miami with me at the time, we were doing, meetings that you really felt like you were bluffing because you're going in and going, we don't belong. But you're having these meetings where we're actually showing them ways to tap into the Chinese market, which they wanted to do but didn't know how. And we had the technology to allow that. So, yeah, we definitely had a really good cut through product, and that allowed us to meet some amazing people and do some amazing things. Really,
Young and hungry too, but I always think you do. I always thought you belong. I know you belong, but going into people like that and having those experiences, it would be a great thing walking in to see these operations
oh
and being
yeah,
able to share something like that.
yeah.
Some big developments.
Yeah, and I think as I said, the first year was a hell of a lot of travel. I think it was 27 cities in the US alone, a lot of Asia, the Middle East, and yeah, it was a hell of a lot of travel. But interestingly enough, and a lot of people think that sounds really cool, and it was
It would
cool,
at the
but
start probably.
yeah, it wears you thin pretty quickly, and hence why it only lasts 3 years. But what I learnt from going through this is that a lot of that travel was for work purposes, but then once you're in Europe, the weekends are yours and you can duck off to a new country on the weekend. So I started to learn that you need to be able to take in the places that you visit. It's not all about a boardroom and a hotel room. I actually started to go out and actually visit the cities I
To
was
enjoy
going
the
to.
experience or to
Oh,
have longevity in what you're
yeah,
doing?
well, both, I think. Like, I did a lot of work in China, and China's a really tough country to get around and communicate and everything like that. But, instead of, you know, flying in on a Sunday and being in the boardroom on Monday, I'd fly in on a Saturday and I'd spend Sunday going and, climbing the Great Wall or doing something, culture, taking the culture of a place. And I think the last, year and a half, I really got to enjoy the places I was visiting, whereas the first 18 months, it was just manic.
I have to ask you, when you because I remember when I went to India for 17 days, when I was dealing with Indian clients, it helped me so much because I start to understand their culture a little
Yeah.
bit better. Did you find when you're traveling different countries and different places that you were able to communicate with them and to be able to relate to them better
Yeah, absolutely. Like even picking up, some of the language and being able to show respect in a lot of different cultures,
in different ways? Because
Yeah, in
different
different
people.
ways. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. And that you come back to Australia, and we're such a multicultural country that that's transferable to here now as well. There's there's a lot of cultures that when it comes to real estate, it could be about the feng shui of a property, it could be about block size, orientation, all those types of things that can be make or break, and a lot of those clients won't tell you that. So if you're going presenting real estate to them that doesn't meet that mold, and of course you don't know, they won't tell you.
You
They're
just
just not.
lose them
You
as
don't get the call
clients.
back.
Yeah, of
So
course.
understanding that and then bringing that up with the client to allow them to understand that you got that knowledge was really powerful.
So, what are some of the key learnings you learned through working around the world?
Um, that's a really interesting question. I think it gave me a lot of self belief because
You can do whatever anywhere.
well, not just that, but I mean, it gave me a whole different working experience. Like working across, managing a team. I had 18 salespeople across probably 6, 7 different time zones. So you have to
Oh,
become very good at time management to understand how you can, it's not just about checking in and making sure employees are doing the right thing. It's about being of service to them and being able
communicating as well.
communicating and actually giving, being of benefit to them. And it's really easy when you're working across multiple time zones to forget about one that maybe is not performing that well and it's not going to be that important. But if you don't put the time in and don't assist, then obviously the results aren't going to get better. So I had to become very good at time management. It made me also look at our IT within the business and make sure that we had, back then it was Slack. There's probably a lot of tools out there now that are better than that, but being able to introduce communication tools and IT that would actually help better our
Yep.
the experience for our staff, that was really important. But heading back to the belief part, I think as I mentioned, there was a lot of pinch me moments as I was going around and working around the world where I didn't feel like necessarily I belonged because I'm walking in and talking to people that have got 10 times more experience than me in some things, but I knew what I knew. And I knew that I could deliver value to these people. And that's something that I think if you know your job intently, no matter what that person on the other side of the call or the other side of the table that you're communicating with, if you believe that you can deliver value to them, they will as well. And it was amazing how quickly, you'd be able to learn to go in and really,
Gain that respect.
yeah, gain the
But I
respect.
guess
And
you're young and hungry, and as you said, and it's a good tip for our viewers and our listeners as well, that if you have that belief and you know your product that well and you can be of service to someone,
Mhm.
even if they've been in the industry, in your case, 5, 10 times longer,
Yeah.
as you said, in my case, I'm speaking to mentors that have been in the game 2, 3 generations.
Mm.
There's always something that you can offer some value or they can
Yeah.
help you in some way. So I think that's very important. Having the confidence to give it a go,
Yeah.
to go
And
speak to someone.
one a single trait that I can tell you, I believe is one of the most important things for any human is sales training. And I didn't understand that until I worked with you. And I'm not trying to, I know it's your podcast. I'm not just trying to talk you up, but I've been lucky enough to work with salespeople all over the world, but also done sales training all over the world. And honestly, none of it compares to what you took me through when I first started here. And the key learning that I got, which has put me in really good stead throughout my career, is understanding you have two ears and one mouth for a reason.
Use
and
them accordingly.
yeah, use them accordingly. Ask a lot of questions. Every time you ask a question, they're going to give you an answer that you can use to close.
Of course.
All those types of
Or an
techniques.
opportunity.
And it becomes so second nature now. But it was amazing going around, taking on new salespeople all over the world and doing sales training. I would always, as I'm interviewing, I'd say, how much sales experience have you had? And the follow-up question was always, have you actually had any formal training? Or are you just good with people?
Yeah.
And it was amazing how quickly I'm talking, people that are, double my age who have been in sales for a long time that learnt a lot from the teachings that I got from you because I believe sales is a science and it helps you in every conversation that you have. It doesn't have to be about being a pushy salesperson. It's about servicing people.
Providing
but you
value.
Can't service if you don't actually understand what the problems are.
The challenge,
and solution selling became I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but when I first got to Investorist, we had 18 different sales staff, and we reduced that down to 9 because we had huge overheads with, people, we're paying accommodation all over the world and all those types of things. So we wanted to cut costs but increase revenue, and we tripled the revenue with half the staff.
Because they were better now. I think it's a perfect segue to now announce my new sales products. I'm only kidding. Look, it makes me happy. Look, as you know, I love sales and I've been doing sales since I was 10. And I study it because I think sales is the art of communication.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not about being pushy. It's about listening to someone, providing a need and providing a solution, understanding what they want. I remember many, many years ago when I was a little bit younger, more inexperienced, and I was so eager and I kept studying sales, and I still study sales to today. And I said to my ex-boss at the time, Trent, I said, I want to be the best salesman on the planet. He goes, you got all the ability to, you just need to listen. I said, what was that? Because I talk so much, but back then I obviously would talk a lot more. But I think it's something, it doesn't matter what line of work you're in, communication's key. So going back to that, then you came and worked with me again for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to note that you left always with the right intent. You always did the right thing by the company. You went in and out of this business twice, and I'm hoping one day, who knows, again. But you partnered up with a company that we've worked with for over 10 years now, which is what you're doing, and we still work together. But it shows when you leave a company properly with integrity and you've got a great relationship, the door's always open.
Yeah.
But not only to come back to work with that company, to work alongside that. You work with us. We did a seminar a couple of days ago, presented side by side. The company that you now are part of, which is a great associate of mine, I think for over 10 years, which is Terry Ryder at Hotspotting, you now work alongside.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that. Tell us a bit about what you're doing. And just before we segue, it was an 8-year tenure that you served here, which we're very happy for. You went, how long ago now? A year?
No, Feb. So what are we looking? Probably 8 months.
8-9 months.
Yeah,
you went alongside Hotspotting. Tell us what you're doing there.
Yeah, well, there's a bit to unpack in that. So if we go back to why I came back in the first place, so 3 years abroad, just before COVID hit, I moved back to Australia. And,
we were touching base along. I was trying to get you on for a long time.
Ironically, after all of that travel, before I knew that I was coming back to Australia for good, I decided it's time to take a couple of months off, and I went and traveled without any work. And that was a really good opportunity to reset and work out what was important to me, what I wanted to do. And obviously the whole 3 years that I was away, you and I were still, communicating. I was still getting your 4 a.m. WhatsApp messages, which drove me crazy. Didn't matter where I was getting WhatsApp messages. But I knew I loved the business at Reventon. I loved the people. I knew when I first came into this industry that I got lucky that I partnered with you, because there are a lot of sharks out there. There are a lot of businesses that are transactional. They want to sell to somebody once and never again. And you were the exact opposite. You turned a transactional business of selling real estate into a service business where you keep bringing them back and servicing them, and then you can get another sale.
Transformation.
Yeah, it's transformational. And so I had opportunities when coming back to Australia to go to some of the, the bigger, public companies in real estate and things like that. And they probably had, great conditions, and it sounded like a better,
great packages too.
Yeah, but a good opportunity to put onto the CV, and probably the most natural progression to go to something like that. But what I knew about coming back to a business like Reventon is that, we're not too big to be able to change things, and I can have impact in a business like this. Whereas you go to a big public company, there's a lot of red tape, and it's very hard unless you're right at the top. Yeah. And I wasn't at that level. To come back into a business like this, I knew I could have influence and impact and actually help, you talk about it all the time, create impact on people's lives and actually make a difference. And that's what appealed to me. So back here for, I think, just short of 3 years.
I think it was just over, but in that ballpark.
Yeah. And then, I had, in that time, I got married, I had a daughter, and, I think one of the things of all of that travel that it taught me was that, life is short, and that, I did want to settle down and have a family and everything. And then once I did, have a daughter, that did change me, and I did want to spend more time at home. And I wanted to, I've always had that desire to go back to working for myself and have a bit more flexibility around, it's about not having so much responsibility as
I
well.
remember
And
you said to me as
I've always
well,
loved
you
responsibility.
love people. You
Yeah.
said to me, I remember this clearly, I love people, I love my team. It's just too much at the moment. I don't want to do that much. I want to work for myself, responsible for a
even
smaller
through
team.
COVID, when
I remember you said
we
that
got
to me.
locked down in Melbourne, and hopefully Dan Andrews isn't watching this, but you and I came into the office every day, and there was a handful of us that still came in here. And that was the environment that we worked best under. It's also the environment that showed to our staff that we were still turning up. We're here, and we were, we had a business to run, and we cared. Yeah. So we were able to support our staff in that way. And, fast forward to, when I did decide that it was time to go out and do my own thing again, that was some of the decisions that I was thinking about internally was, if I want to be spending more time at home, and if I want to be, more of a family man and things, something's got to give.
I can't be working with Chris.
I can't be working with Chris. Yeah, Big wants me there at 4:00 in the morning every day. But no, it did mean that I'm not the sort of person who wants to do anything half-assed. If I'm in, I'm in. And
I remember you said that, and when you said it, I understood straight away.
Yeah.
Because for you, from what I understood, it was more about, I'm not letting the team down. If I'm in, I'm in.
Yeah.
And this is what I need. And I gave zero resistance both times, although that was a very, very hard thing to listen to.
It might have been edging for it to happen.
Absolutely not. I understand what my team or what people I care about need at the time, or I feel I do. And that was the right decision. And I see that you've made a great decision. So going back to now Hotspotting, which you're now partnering with, it's a great company.
We worked with Terry for almost my entire tenure at Hotspotting, where we'd buy a lot of data reports.
Yeah, I worked with him for over 10 years now, I think.
Yeah. And, I always had a very good relationship with Terry through working with him through this.
We did presentations together, all the above.
Yeah, all of that stuff. But also his philosophy on investment and the price point, regional markets, what to look for.
Knowledge, reports, information.
And, I suppose even ignoring all of the noise in media and actually focusing on real data and creating real insights from that data, that always appealed to me, because I'm quite analytical when it comes to those types of things. So, we always had that good relationship. And literally, 10 years ago, I said to him as a joke, if you ever think about hanging up the boots, make sure you tap me on the shoulder. And then, fast forward to probably October, November of last year, he said, listen, I've spoken to a couple of companies about
we were one
this.
of them, we were looking at it too.
And he said, look, one of the challenges with my business is it's too heavily reliant on me. So I can't get a decent valuation on the business because it's single-handedly, if I was to, get hit by the proverbial bus tomorrow, there is no business. So he said, anyway, I said to him, well, listen, I'm in a position where I want to do less and have less team environment and things like that, where I can just do what I want to do, which is, buyers advocacy. So I started a buyers advocacy business where I just work from home. But I said, I can also add a lot of value to your business. And if you've got the flexibility for me to be able to do that from abroad as well, I think we can work something out. So he said, yeah, let's do that. And it's probably, I've been in it probably 10 months, I think it is now. And, we've started innovating things like the technology in that business. So we've sort of gone back to prop tech a little bit. So just last week unveiled a new members portal, which is something he never had. It was always just reports. Now we've got the ability to do electronic AVMs, which are the most powerful ones in the country, to get valuations on property. You can research any suburb in Australia. And we've got a heap of other resources in there, like calculators.
It's funny how it all comes together. Started in hospitality, used that skill, transferred it, get into real estate, have a great understanding, traveled the world, learned about prop tech, came back here, added more value, use another alliance, a partnership to become a co-partner in something and still work alongside us. Amazing journey, Tim. We can talk for hours and hours. Now we're getting to the end of our podcast. Are you ready for your
Hit
mad
me.
minute? Current book you're reading?
It's actually by Maha Sinabi, who is the founder of, well, when I say founder, he's the developer of Springfield, which is in 30 kilometers south of Brisbane.
Springfield Lakes.
30 years ago, he decided to buy the largest parcel
You
of land
told
in
me about
Australia.
that. Yeah,
and
yeah.
He said, I'm going to build a city here. Fast forward 30 years, that's what he's
That's
done.
awesome. Top music genre?
I listen to everything. I actually, sadly, I listen to a lot of old music, Cat Stevens and Dire Straits and things like that.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
I'd go with probably Dolce de Leche.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Favorite color?
Black.
Dream car?
Maserati.
Favorite board game?
Monopoly.
Favorite app on your phone?
WhatsApp. It's just so useful.
That's what was on it. Favorite dessert?
Probably ice cream. Yep.
If you had one superpower, what would it be?
Oh God. Fly.
If someone would play you in a movie, who would cast you?
Well, actually, while I was in the States for a long time, I used to get mistaken as E from Entourage all the time. So maybe he could do me for a
I
change.
like What's one of the best books you've ever read?
Questions Are the Answers by Alan Pease.
Alan Pease, I remember. What was your dream job or career aspiration?
Oh, that's a really weird one because it sounds really weird to say this, but I've never been a dreamer and I've never been that big a planner, which sounds really strange because that's what I teach other people. But I just have a way of making life work. So I don't even know today what my
Hard
dream
work,
is.
perseverance.
Yeah.
You have. If you won the lottery, how would you spend your winnings?
Quickly.
I've got a couple of them. Favorite holiday?
My honeymoon up in not Port Douglas, Hamilton Island, Hayman Island. Sorry.
And from 1 to 10, how much have you enjoyed being on this podcast?
Oh, 10.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Of course.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as me.